Hi you guys, welcome back to my channel, or to my channel if you're new here. My name is Ivy, and today we're going to be talking about my 10 favorite books that I read in 2023. Like a lot of other people, I got back into reading in 2023. I was a really big reader when I was younger, and then like a lot of other people, school gets a little bit more intense. You spend a little bit more time on it. Maybe you get a job and you just kind of fall out of the habit of reading. And this year I really got back into it, and here are my 10 favorite books that I have read this year. These are in no particular order. I genuinely think it would take me all day to try to sit down and figure out like what was my favorite book of the year. So no particular order, these are just equally as loved by me. So yeah, let's just get right into it. I'm gonna start with these because I have 3 from the same author that I really enjoyed this year. This is probably not a surprise to anybody. She's a super popular author, and that is Taylor Jenkins Reid. I read 3 books of hers this year, and they all made this list. The one that I read most recently is Carrie Soto is Back. I rated this one 4 stars. I honestly think now I would probably rate it like 4.5. I really liked this book, and it didn't really give me like a 5-star feeling, but my cat's up here if I seem distracted. It didn't really give me a 5-star feeling like I feel like a lot of other books do, but I still constantly think about this book, and I'm not even really sure why. It made me really interested in tennis. Never been interested in tennis before. I just really enjoyed this book, and I feel like I really enjoyed her character, and it's definitely a book that I think that I will reread. The next book by her, this is the first book I ever read by her, and that is Daisy Jones and the Six. Everybody raves about this book, and I think it's just because the vibes are so good. The 70s vibes, the rock and roll vibes. If you liked the era, I don't know if anyone else was in this era except for me and my mom, but when like A Star is Born came out, then Bohemian Rhapsody, then Rocket Man, just when a ton of like sex, drug, and rock and roll movies were coming out. If you were really into that, I think you would really like this book. I'm definitely going to reread it before the show comes out. Sam Claflin is playing Billy, and I'm so excited. This book is really good. I would definitely recommend it. I rated this 5 stars. It was going to be a 4-star for me until literally the last line. This book has the absolute perfect ending. I genuinely don't think that this book could have an ending better than the one that she gave it. And then my favorite book by Taylor Jenkins Reid that I have read thus far is Malibu Rising. Again, I think that this book is so good because the vibes are so good. You truly feel like you're in Malibu, like driving down the coast with your sunbum sunscreen on and like a coconut water. The vibes are so good. If you like this, I feel like I've never heard this comparison before, and it is kind of an odd comparison, but if you like Shameless, I think you will like this book. This is like if the kids in Shameless were rich. This is that book. Their family dynamic to me just feels really similar. Nina feels very much like Fiona. She kind of takes care of all of the other siblings. It is just like, it reminds me so much of Shameless. But yeah, this was my favorite book by Taylor Jenkins Reid. I absolutely love this book. Again, I think that I will do a reread of this book. I own it in hardcover and paperback. I just love it so much. And I have I hold this very close to my heart, and I would definitely recommend this book if you haven't picked it up yet. It is absolutely worth the read. The next books that I have here, I'm kind of counting as one just because I want to talk about both of them, but I do have a favorite out of the 2, and that is the second and the third books in the Bridgerton series. I didn't include The Duke and I in this because it just honestly wasn't my favorite. I rated that one 3 stars, and then I rated both of these 5 stars. This one is like a solid 5. 6-star in my tier, and this one's probably closer to like a 4.5 or a 4.75. If you like the show, I think that you will absolutely like eat these books up. This one is like, if I had to pick one, I would definitely pick The Viscount Who Loved Me, but I wanted to throw this one in here as well just because I really did enjoy it. But The Viscount Who Loved Me was truly like one of my favorite books this year. It was so good. The story of Kate and Anthony, it's just truly like one of my favorite love stories ever. I think one reason why I did really love this book is because I was obsessed with Bridgerton season 2. It took me a long time to get into it. I did not really enjoy Kate's character, and then the one night I like just couldn't stop thinking about the show, and I stayed up all night, and I think I watched the last 3 episodes, and I was obsessed with Kate and Anthony. I seriously think about them all the time. My sister sends me edits of them all the time because they are just one of my absolute favorite couples. And this book does not disappoint. If you like the show, I will say definitely prepare yourself that it is not like a carbon copy of the show. They definitely change a lot of things about their story and about some of like their character traits. But even though it's changed, it is still so good. I truly love this book. I absolutely flew through it and cannot wait to continue on with the series. If you read The Duke and I and were kind of iffy about it, I really encourage you to just push through and read the second book. Or honestly, they're not independent. They're interconnected standalones, so you don't technically even need to read them because you kind of know what happens anyway. But seriously, if you enjoyed The Duke and I even a little bit, definitely give this one a shot because it is so worth it and so much better than the first one. The next book that I have here is, I want to say it's another favorite, but of course it's another favorite because this is my favorites video, but it is Mary Jane by Jessica Anya Blau. I'm sorry that I keep like shoving the book in front of my face. This book, you guys, absolute 5-star read. If you have not picked this book up, please read this book. Not to mention the cover is absolutely gorgeous and looks so nice just like sitting on your shelf. But this book is so good. If you haven't heard of this book or you're not super familiar with it, my cat is clawing at what I have you guys sitting on. Get off. If you're not familiar what this book is about, it basically follows a 14-year-old girl named Mary Jane, and she grew up in a really conservative, kind of old-fashioned household. She was an only child. Her parents are very kind of cookie-cutter, typical American family. Her mom's a stay-at-home mom. Her dad works. They go to church every Sunday, and she starts babysitting or nannying for one of her neighbors. And they're a younger couple in their 30s. They have a 5-year-old girl. They're kind of hippies. She just kind of gets kind of opened up to the fact that there are different people in the world other than her parents, and that there is a lot of like diversity and people who think differently. And it's just a really good coming of age story. I feel like I resonated with this story so much, and this is definitely a book that I feel like I would like want my kids to read because it really just like opens your eyes or like opens your mind to different things and like different possibilities. It's just so good. It's definitely a character driven book, so if you like that, you will probably really like this. A great summer read, truly just such a good book. 10 out of 10 recommend. The next book that I have here is a little bit different from a lot of the other ones that I've shown so far, and that is The Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires by Grady Hendrix. I have seen a ton of bad reviews on this book. Obviously this is super popular, but a lot of the people that I followed didn't really like this book, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. It is very gory, so if you don't like gory, maybe don't pick this book up, but it's kind of gory in like a funny way. It just reminds me of like comedy horror, and I really enjoyed it. It's one of those books that is like 400 pages but feels like it was 250. It just flies by, and those are my favorite because I love the sense of productivity when you're reading and you are just like flying through the book, and that is how I was with this one. I rated this one 5 stars. I don't know if I would keep that, if I would change it to 4.5, but honestly it was just really good, and I really enjoyed it and would definitely recommend. It is a great summer read as well. The next book I have here I hold very near and dear to my heart. It is It's Not Summer Without You by Jenny Han. This is the second book in the Summer I Turn Pretty series and was my absolute favorite of the series. I read these books all back to back, but this one really stuck with me. If you have not read this series, I would definitely recommend it. It is honestly one of my favorite series that I have read this year. It is just so good. I feel like Jenny Han does such a good job of reminding you of what it felt like to be a teenager. I know a ton of people really find Belly's character annoying in these books, but if you haven't read them yet, I would really recommend going into it and kind of trying to remind yourself of what it felt like to be a teenager. I feel like when you're younger, you're so self-consumed and kind of have a hard time thinking about everyone else in the situation. and you just kind of think about how it's affecting you and how it makes you feel. And I think that's why so many people think Belly is annoying, because she's kind of self-absorbed. But I remember kind of feeling that way when I was younger. When something would happen, all I would think about is how crappy it made me feel. And as you get older, you kind of start to think about how everyone else in the situation is affected and not just yourself. So I think that her character, some people do find annoying, but I kind of find it sentimental or nostalgic almost, because that is how I remember being as a kid. These books are honestly just so good. The vibes in these books are also immaculate. They just somehow, even if you didn't have a similar childhood as the characters in these books do, like, I didn't go to the beach until I was older. It was not something that like me and my family did, and somehow these books made me feel like I was like revisiting the summer house that I go to every year, even though that doesn't exist. Like, she's just such a good author, and she's so good at like making you feel like almost like you're a part of the story, like you truly know how the characters felt like in that moment. It is just such a good book. It is just such a good book. I seriously can't say enough good things about it. I was about to say that it's a really fluffy read, and while it can be, it also deals with some really hard topics. And again, I just think that Jenny Han does such a good job of explaining how younger kids or teens can kind of handle those hard topics, because again, I think Belly kind of thinks only how she feels when a lot of other people are affected. Definitely tore at my heartstrings. Seriously, such a good series. If you haven't picked it up yet, I would strongly suggest it, but I'm just including this one because it was my favorite. The next book that I have here is definitely a heavier read, so if that is not your thing, I don't know if you would love this book as much as I did, but that is My Dark Vanessa by Kate Elizabeth Russell. I was definitely late to the game on this book. I feel like this was super big last year. If you're unfamiliar with what this book is about, I didn't really know what this book was about going into it, but it's basically about this girl named Vanessa, and she goes to a private school, and one of her teachers kind of takes interest in her. This has a past and present timeline, the past timeline being when she is in boarding school, and the present being, I think she's in her late 20s, early 30s, and another girl who went to the same boarding school that she did comes out and said that this teacher molested her. And it is just a beautiful story of like childhood trauma and kind of how it can affect you and how you could process it and how it can kind of turn you into a person that you wouldn't typically have become or liked. It is just such a beautiful story. I can't even describe it. Again, another really character-driven book. If you can't tell, I really like those. But seriously, this is such a good book. I would definitely recommend it, honestly, to anybody, but I think it's really great for anyone who kind of has a hard time sympathizing with a victim in situations like this, whether that be sexual assault, whether that be domestic violence. If you're always the person who kind of thinks, well, they should have done this, this, and this, I definitely recommend you reading this book, because it really shows kind of how your mind kind of plays a trick on you and doesn't allow you to think the way that, you know, you or I would think, kind of looking at the situation from the outside. It is truly such a good book. I really hope I did a good job explaining why this book is so good, and I hope I made you want to read it, because truly this book is so good, and I definitely think it's a book that like everybody could take something from. Okay, we are on the last two. This next one is my favorite romance out of the year, so I needed to include it. I know that the Bridgerton books are romances, but I kind of consider the romance genre as being books that kind of follow the meet cute, get together, third act conflict, like that kind of pattern. And that is Funny You Should Ask by Alyssa Sussman. You guys know I can't shut up about this book. I feel like I've talked about it so much. But this is the book that I kind of made me realize, like, oh, like maybe I do like romance books, because I feel like I tried so many romance books that were really popular. I would pick them up and then I wouldn't like them, and I wouldn't enjoy the story, or I wouldn't enjoy the characters, or I just didn't get the same feeling out of them that I feel like other people were getting. But I got that out of this book. I truly felt like I could feel how the characters felt about each other and kind of how they were like enthralled with each other, and I just really liked it. The third act conflict did kind of make me mad a little bit, but I looked past it because I enjoyed so much of the rest of the book so much. This is about a girl named Chani, and she is a journalist, and she basically writes a piece on this famous guy. I think his name is Gabe. His name is Gabe. I was gonna say Ross. Definitely not Ross. She writes this piece on this famous guy named Gabe who is playing James Bond, I think. I think he's playing James Bond. And basically they have not a one-night stand, but kind of like a crazy weekend together, and she writes this like incredible piece on it, and it goes viral because this random girl just had this like amazing night with a super famous guy, and it kind of goes through that night, them seeing each other in other times in their lives, and then 10 years later when she has to write a follow-up piece on this guy because he was in rehab and he kind of did his Lindsay Lohan, and now he's like he's hitting his comeback, if that makes sense. But this book is so good. I absolutely love books that are about fake famous people. I feel like I'm just like obsessed with famous people, and this is how to like get your fix because they're not actually real and you're not actually like reading real people's lives. It's just fake. But this book is seriously so good. I don't really know what I would compare it to or say like if you liked this book maybe you'll like this, because again I just typically don't love your typical romance or rom-com books, but I absolutely loved this one. So if you haven't felt the need to read it, this is your sign. If you bought it because of the cover and haven't picked it up yet, this is your sign to pick it up and give it a chance and give it a read. The last book I have here is one of the more recent books that I have read. I actually think it's the last book that I read, and it is If He Had Been With Me by Laura Nolan. I feel like this book, I don't know if other people are like this, but I really avoided this book because I think the cover is disgusting. I really hate it. The cover gives me like Wattpad, Kindle Unlimited, raunchy, like not that good of a book kind of book. That is what this cover is giving. When I tell you that is not what this book is. This book is a YA. I think it's considered a romance. I would probably say it's more of a coming of age. It follows this girl named Autumn, and her neighbor, her next door neighbor, Finney, were best friends growing up. Their mothers kind of have the Susanna, I forget what her name is, but the moms in The Summer I Turned Pretty, their mothers have that type of relationship, kind of the soulmate best friend connection. So they spent their childhood being best friends, growing up together, and as they get older, as this kind of happens, they kind of go their separate ways, make their own friend groups, kind of grow up by themselves and become who they are individually. And it just kind of goes through from their freshman year to their senior year, and just kind of her growing up, getting into relationships, getting her first boyfriend, making a friend group, dealing with like other kids who she may not like in high school. It's just so good, and I feel like this book does a good job of kind of explaining or kind of showing high school in a way that doesn't seem like super unrealistic. And overall, again, another really character-driven book. I just feel like her character just reminds me of like how me and my friends were in high school, and I just feel like kind of sentimental to her. This book reminded me of The Summer I Turned Pretty a lot, so if you liked that series, I think you'll like this. It reminded me of Perks of Being a Wallflower a lot. So if you like that book or that movie, more so that movie because the book has a very unique writing style, but if you liked that movie, I would definitely recommend this book because the friend groups kind of remind me of each other, the coming of age kind of reminds me of each other. How sad and heartbreaking that book is, or that book and movie is very similar to how heartbreaking this book is. Truly, it is just like such a good book. You will feel so much for these characters. I will say that you might as well stop at chapter 83. Just don't read past that. It will make the book so much better. When I tell you guys, I'm not kidding. I'm not kidding and like joking. Don't read past chapter 83. Seriously, stop. Do not read past it. Do not read past it. Just let the book end at chapter 83, okay? Promise me you'll do that if you're gonna pick up this book. This book also is on Kindle if you're interested. So is Mary Jane. If you don't want to buy the physical copies, they are both on Kindle. I don't know if any of these other books are. I don't think so. But yes, that is my 10th book on my 10 top books of 2022. I'm filming this in December, so hopefully I won't have like the best read ever right now because I'll forget about it and probably won't talk about it in any videos because I'm kind of wrapping up my 2022 reads. But let me know what your favorite book was of this year. If there's a book that you feel like I really need to read in 2023, please comment it down below. I absolutely love sharing books and reading with you guys. I just feel like it is so much fun and just brings like so much happiness to me. So thank you so much for watching this video. If you got to the end, I would love if you would comment and tell me you got to the end, because it just absolutely makes my day. And tell me a book that I should read in 2023, maybe your favorite book. I would really like that. I will definitely take you guys as recommendations. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye guys.